Hello. Well, welcome to our band's concert for this season. All students have been working very hard on the concert repertoire, so please turn off your cell phones. And if you can at all, stay for the entire concert so you can see what everyone's been doing. We'll start with the jazz band behind me and then hear from the percussion ensemble, and the symphonic band, and wind ensemble. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Bill Bellmeister. I'm the co-president of the Music Boosters. I wanted to say thank you, just a couple quick thank yous to the administration, Christy Grasti, the assistant principals, Tim, who runs the theater, and especially to Ellen Sate, who knows everyone, everything, and is the glue that keeps everything running around here. Thanks to the New Millennium Foundation that provides instruments, storage equipment, etc. And special thanks to the EOS Foundation, started by one of our alumni parents, that provides funding each year to help students pay for all of this. Speaking of fundraising, the Music Matters fundraiser has just started. This is our major fundraiser, runs through January, and it's running just like last year, which means that for every $100 you donate before the 31st, you're entered for a chance to win an iPad mini. So if you donate $1,000, that's 10 tickets. So, not to suggest. Anyways, so this year we have something big we're saving for. We are going to be going ahead with new marching band uniforms. Please help. Also, new instruments, new percussion, choir and orchestra as well. We're looking at new violins, new folio cabinets. So please donate generously. And then the final thing, our marching band season DVD is for sale out of the lobby. You've probably seen it. NFA Good did a fantastic job putting together a 3 DVD set, requesting a minimum donation of $25, and if you round it up to $100, you get a chance to win an iPad mini. So that's all that I wanted to say right now. I'll be back later on to pester you more and thank more people. All right, thank you and enjoy the concert.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. This is my first band concert here at Los Gatos. We had an orchestra concert on Tuesday, and now it's tonight. It's just been such a wonderful time. I've had a great time here at Los Gatos so far, and I hope your students have as well. Up here right now, obviously, is our jazz ensemble. I think they're doing pretty good so far. That first piece was a number called Hey Pachuco, and it featured Brendan on tenor. And of course, Lucas back there on drums. We have really a lot of music to get through tonight with all of our groups, and so I'll try and keep my hilarious jokes to a minimum. Up next, we have a tune that's going to feature the entire saxophone section called Sunny's Place. Thank you very much. Again, that featured our entire saxophone section as well as solos from Veer on alto. And Harrison back there on trumpet. Up next, we're going to slow things down just a little bit with a modern ballad. This features our very own Paul Kwame on alto section. This is called True North. How about that ball, huh? We have just one more piece before we switch gears for you. This is going to feature Brendan on tenor again and Eli on trombone. Okay. And Michael Thier back on trumpet. And This is a really up-tempo shuffle. It's a lot of fun. It's by an Australian composer. It's called Savannah Joe, so enjoy. shortest amount of time you can think of to change up for percussion ensemble. 2 minutes tops, I promise. Did I make my time limit?
No.
I think we're ready. On stage now we have our percussion techniques class, our percussion ensemble. But this is a class that meets every day, the same day as the bands. It was a class that was started here at Los Gatos a few years ago to give all percussionists a better experience in band. It allows those that are in the bands to play more. It allows everybody that comes through the program to really learn percussion in a way that they probably wouldn't learn if they were shoved 10 people into a band class. So I think it's a great thing that we have here. It's very educationally sound, and I'm eternally grateful to the administration, the boosters, and everybody that helps support this program. The class is taught primarily by Colin and Cameron, our two percussion instructors, who do amazing things with their students. We have Cameron right here. And then at the very last minute, they bring me in and say, hey, you're going to conduct this. So it gets to look like I did all this, but I did almost none of this. So, but this is a piece called Technology. It's a really cool piece. I hope you enjoy it. We also brought out a couple of former percussion techniques class students to help us out on the parts. We have Paul and Will, and then obviously Peter right here as well. So thanks. This is Technology. Thank you so much. We're going to take a brief intermission now. This one a little bit longer, maybe 10 minutes or so we can set up all the chairs that we need for our next group. Oh, And before we do that, we have Mr. Goldmeister here, who has a few more announcements.
Okay, so we did want to take this opportunity to thank Cameron, who's been our voice of continuity. This year. Winter percussion looks like it's going to be absolutely fabulous. Great participation, so much so that we've actually been able to lower the cost of winter percussion. As a reminder, you sign up for winter percussion online. And so I just want to say thank you, Cameron, for all your tireless effort, keeping the wheels on the bus. And another person who kept the wheels on the bus, of course, is Mrs. Sate, who was back there. I don't know if she snuck out. There she is. And one announcement I forgot. For those of you who are videotaping or not, KCAT is also live streaming this. Of course, you don't care because you're here. But they're also going to put a clip up on the website. They said in one day. We know that's not going to happen, but real soon, after the concert. Thank you.
Just a brief intermission, go buy your DVDs, hang out, we'll be right back. I think we're ready. Why's the window so low? All right, so on stage right now we have the symphonic band. Welcome. This is our largest band of this evening with over 60 kids here on this tiny stage. I'm really excited. We have 4 pieces that we're going to play for you this evening. The first one is a piece called A Childhood Remembered. It's a light, playful piece. I think it's really a lot of fun. I hope you enjoy it as well. Thank you very much. Up next we have a piece that's a real staple in the wind band literature by a composer named Claire Grundman, who has just composed a ton of stuff for band. It's a collection of Irish folk songs called an Irish Rhapsody that takes us on a whole little journey of Ireland, so enjoy. Thank you very much. What would a winter concert be without a little Christmas music? Yeah. I think what people don't, I love listening to Christmas music. In fact, I listen to it every day on my way to work and on my way home. But the thing about being in a band is that you listen to that one Christmas song every day for like 2 months. And so we only did one to save ourselves from insanity. The one we chose, though, the one I chose, is Carol of the Bells, which is one of my favorites. And this is based on the version by Mannheim Steamroller from a few years back. So it's really a lot of fun. I hope you enjoy it as well. Jake back there on drum set. Oh, this group has one more piece for you, and then we'll have the wind ensemble after that. This is by a composer named John Mackey, who has become one of the most performed composers alive today for high school band and college band. He has a very distinct style. It's a very aggressive style, sort of in your face. It's a lot of fun. This piece is based on an art installation in New Mexico. I've never seen it, but apparently somebody went out and installed like hundreds of steel rods in the middle of the desert. So when a storm rolls through, it attracts lightning, a lightning field. And I think it'd be really cool to see if I were brave enough to go to a field full of metal rods. But this is his musical interpretation of that piece called Lightning Field. So enjoy. Thank you so much. Give us just a minute and we'll reset for wind ensemble. Please welcome the wind ensemble. Thank you so much. That was a piece called The Acrobats. It's a circus march. I think it's a lot of fun. Good way to start a concert. We're going to move along to another holiday song because it's a winter concert. This one is for Hanukkah, though, a Rhapsody for Hanukkah. It includes a variety of what I'm told are traditional Hanukkah songs, so perhaps you'll recognize at least one of them. All right. This is Rhapsody for Hanukkah. Enjoy. Thank you so much. Our next piece is a slower piece. It's a beautiful piece called The Seal Lullaby by Eric Whitaker. He wrote this for DreamWorks, actually. DreamWorks called and said, hey, we're thinking of making a movie based on this story, and we want you to be the composer. We're thinking about it. And he loved it. So we wrote this song, this beautiful song, a lullaby, and sent it off to them, and didn't hear anything. 2 months later, he called. He's like, did you not like it? What's going on? And they're like, oh, we decided to make Kung Fu Panda instead. I know, so tough break, but we got this beautiful piece of music out of it called The Seal Lullaby. He wrote it originally for choir with piano, and then rewrote it himself for a version for band, and that's what we're going to play for you this evening. So this is The Seal Lullaby. Before we finish up, I have a few announcements to make. Number one, I imagine many of you have heard because we announced this at the orchestra concert on Tuesday about our international tour. Every 4 years, the music department here takes an international tour. The last tour was in 2014 to England. So we've been talking with our travel agent and trying to decide on a location and date for that. So we're going to go over spring break, April of 2018, and we're going to go to Spain. So we'll take the band, the orchestra, and the choir. Everybody's invited to go. We'll have meetings about it with costs and all that in January sometime. The details are not set in stone yet. The company is based in Colorado, so I'm going to visit them in December when I'm out there for Christmas and sort of nail down some of the details. But as it looks like now, we're going to perform in Barcelona, Madrid, and Valencia. And some really cool locations. It looks like it to be a really amazing trip. So I hope you're excited. Especially all you see. And then before we close out, But it's never easy being a first-year band director, replacing somebody. But coming here, I felt so welcomed by everybody, by the administration here, the principals. They do nothing but help me and ask me how they can help me. The teachers here, Mrs. Riley, Miss Sate, oh my God, she's amazing. All the parents here and the booster parents, you all just do a ton, and I'm so appreciative of it. And I just come to work every day and work with these all, and that's a good thing. No, they're great kids. They're wonderful. I have so much fun with them. So thank you for sending them to me every day, and just literally thank you everybody for making this experience so far so amazing. I can't wait to finish out the year and have many more. We have one more song for you. This is nothing but pure fun. This is Sea Rock City. Enjoy it.
kind of sums up, I think, how the city. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening. Thanks for coming.